Levin with Chuck Levin's Washington Music Center, and I am here with Austin from BOSS, and we are here to unleash upon the world the newest member to the 200 series family, the IR-200 amp and cab simulator.
Yeah, man, it's well, thanks for having me on. Yeah, IR-200, amazing little amplifier in a box, and it literally is an amplifier in a box. Like all the components of a classic combo or a stack amp, they're all in there. So to start, you get 7 guitar preamps, ranging with different gain stagings. So you get like some clean stuff, some mid-crunch stuff, some high gain stuff. But the other cool thing is that you get 3 bass preamps. So you can actually use like, kind of like a tube-ish kind of a bass amp kind of sound. You can also get something really clean. You can push the tube bassy kind of sound to get it like real gritty and nasty. And then you also have hundreds of IRs inside of this thing. So you get about 150 IRs just out of the box that you can thumb through with yourself, that are made by BOSS engineers, as well as a few in there from our good buddies at Celestion.
Yeah.
So there's a couple of good Celestion IRs in there. And then if that's not enough IRs, you get 128 slots to put your own IRs in. So on top of all that.
Let's talk about IRs for a second, because BOSS is no stranger to amp effects and amp modeling and stuff like that, but IR is like a whole other ball game.
Yeah, it is. And for those that aren't familiar with what an IR is, an IR stands for an impulse response. And what this is basically capturing a frequency sweep of a speaker cabinet. So you're basically taking a digital print of the response of a speaker cabinet, right? Whether it be, greenbacks, blues, silver bells, reds, even the cabinet design, the 412, the open back 410, the open back 112 versus the closed back 112. All of those different cabinets and speaker arrangements have different sounds to them and different textures, as well as microphones too. Microphone is also the other filtering element that comes into play when selecting IRs. And people, I think a lot of guitar players are very particular about the IRs that they use because it works for the way they play and the sounds they're going for. And they're totally right. I think it's it has to base upon what sound you're going for, what preamp you're using and stuff. And honestly, if we were plugging in a huge high gain stack, if you're putting that through a 112 IR, it might sound a little puny, but you put that through a 412 with an 87 or a 57 on there, and it just roars and rips. So the IR plays into the preamp as much as the IR just standing by itself. So yeah, IRs are just digital snapshots of speakers that we can use in the digital world instead of having to own all of these speaker cabinets.
This is really on that endless journey of finding the tone that you need. You don't got to buy. Don't stop buying amps and stuff like that. But this is it. This is your way to dial in every amp, every cab, all these different ways of placement, mic placements, and stuff like that, and really find that tone that's going to work for whatever you're trying to do.
Yeah, and I think it really takes out the hassle of just bringing all this gear to a gig when you get there. There's a PA system run this directly through the PA, you would be pleasantly surprised of how good it feels to actually play it. Because part of the technology is not only just just the IR cabinet, but another part of it is that this runs at 32-bit 96 kilohertz. So it's one of the top ADA converters that are out there for guitar pedals in this market. And because it has that much headroom and that many doors open for sound and stuff, the dynamics end up translating that well.
Yeah.
So you can take like a high gain amp, for example, like this tweetish sound I got here, right? So got this kind of like mid gain. Right, it gets nice and thick and gritty, but simply just switch to the neck pickup. And the dynamics are now controlled in my hand, just like a real amplifier, which is great. And I think that's the important thing about like digital and DSP and amplifier world is that guitar players want to be able to feel the amp and change the dynamics just by changing their pick attack or anything like that. So the IR-200 definitely does do that. And just to quickly go over a couple of other things, you have your basic amp controls on the top, right? So you get gain, level, 3-band EQ, just like you'd find on any ordinary amp. Then the other 3 knobs you can select your amplifier type. There is a through for the amplifier type, so that's basically a completely clean, dry path that you can use to maybe for acoustic instruments, maybe you use your own overdrive pedal as a preamp of sorts. I've seen that very commonly, and then you can just use it just as a cab box, which is great. And then you also have your cab selection. So again, you can USB in there and upload your own IRs, but there's a ton of them in there already, so you definitely play around with some of those. And then you have ambience, and ambience is basically recreating the room sound. So you have things like hall, room, and studio in there and stuff. My other favorite feature on this is the stereo effects loop. So right now I have a DD8 and the Dimension C DC2W in there in stereo. So it has a mono send and a stereo return. So when I do go for those kind of cleanish tones, right? Like the delay you were hearing before has kind of got like a little bit of a ping pong thing. But as soon as I add a little bit of the modulation, and again, if your customers or anybody out there is interested in DC2W, highly recommend running it in stereo. It's just listen. Stereo is always better. Stereo is better. Always better. Stereo is always better. But that's one of the really, really cool things. So it's a TRS return on that 1/4 inch. And then my other favorite part, because I have a million bajillion cables coming out of this thing, is MIDI. You can actually use the MIDI to control things like change your amplifier presets. You can use it to change the cab. You can use it to change the gain and the effect levels. So you can get like a kind of a volume pedal out of this little guy right here. So very, very cool. Yeah.
And you touched on it for a minute, but you can actually load your own IRs into this thing, which is totally unique, especially for something at this price point. This is not just your basic cab sim or your amp simulator. This is make your own cab sim and amp simulator.
Right. So basically, in this thing, it's kind of storing the IRs for you. So you can use them on top of the plethora of amplifiers that we have in there, or preamps, let's say. But in terms of storing your own IRs in there, I mean, like people collect IRs like it's like baseball cards. I mean, like a lot of high-end multi-effects and stuff like that, even the stuff that we have, comes with just plethoras of IRs that you can just choose from. And again, even moving a microphone like a centimeter has the huge world of changes. And you wouldn't think that, but it's surprising. I mean, take 5 slots in there, load the same IR, but the microphone just moved slightly forward or slightly to the side. you'd be surprised how different the sound can be just between all of those. And the fact that I can kind of just thumb through them freely and easily is perfect. And I can also run, since I'm running this in stereo, I can actually separate the IRs. So one of my favorite recording tricks is using 2 microphones on the same cabinet, right? So you get like your high-end microphone, like you're capturing all the highs, and you get your microphone that's capturing all the lows. You blend all those two together in a stereo signal, and you basically got like a crazy studio recording rig.
So let's talk about the stereo capabilities. You talked about the send return being stereo, but it's also stereo pedal, and you can run 2 different cab sims at the same time.
Yeah, you can. So again, my favorite technique of blending microphone sounds together, because you can get some really, really interesting tones when you start doing that kind of stuff. Yeah, and you can separate that and simply just by pan left and right and do it that way. And yeah, the stereo return, great for stereo effects. I mean, like if you're using like reverbs, delays especially, and I'd highly recommend it for modulation pedals, you know, the CE1s, the CE2s, you know, the choruses and stuff like that. When you run them in stereo, there's like something special that happens in the phasing of like that wet, dry sound. And yeah, this basically allows you to do that without having 2 big boxes on stage to get that sound.
Your back will thank you.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Your back, the car, the people riding in your car.
Well, let's give it a run through. Let's hear some of these other tones this thing can spit out.
Yeah, sure. So so one of my favorites is actually some of the mid gain stuff that I have going on here. So in going through a couple of them, so I got this kind of like, you know, tan tweedy type of a sound, you know, halfway gain, but I also have this really, really nice kind of Marshall end sound. So checking that out. Again, you can hear all the dynamic differences, and that's just from one amp. I mean, I have multiples of different others. We have this X high gain preamp, and what's really cool about this one is that no matter how much gain you give it, you still get the articulation of all the notes. So I got this rhythm pretty cranked on the gainy side, and I'm just going to play some jazz chords, and you'll hear all of the notes inside of those chords. So, for example, if I'm doing like. Or if I want to even take the gain up even higher. And also leave the effects loop on. Get that really nice wide dynamic range, which is really really important, especially when, like, you know, because even in the DSP world, you still expect an amplifier in DSP to respond like an amplifier in the real world. So the fact that we kind of added that little bit of extra to this unit specifically, I find it to be one of the more wonderful things about this thing.
It's massive, because you could totally, you know, the wrong, you just slap a sound onto a guitar and it can sound sterile, it can sound mushy. This is alive, like you could feel it.
Yeah, it definitely has like kind of like this push-pull type of a feel, especially to like things like even the natural like clean stuff, for example, right? So I'll go ahead, I'll have this. And this is actually using one of the Celestion IRs. This is using the 112 cream with a with a 121 on there, so nice kind of ribbony sounds. But as soon as I start digging, get a little bit of tasty grit in there, even though it's, and that can be for all different types. So I mean, you could even do it for, this is like kind of like my version of like kind of like a kind of cranked up top boost type of circuit thing. But yeah. So yeah, very, very, very nice, huge, wide range of different types of amplifiers. I know what people are probably thinking looking at this. They want to know if it chugs, right? They want to know if it like
does it gent?
Does it gent? it definitely certainly does. So so here we go trying to do that. I did mention before that this thing does do bass sounds. So let me switch over to a bass.
Yeah.
And play you some nice, tasty bass tones.
Let's do it.
So first one I got here, I got like kind of like an 810, kind of, you know, your typical refrigerator stack, you know.
Yep.
And every bass player that's ever gotten a convertible knows about sticking that thing out the back of the head lot. So. Very nice, typical, like,
yep.
You know, kind of cleaner sound. And the fact that I have both bass and guitar stuff in here means that, like, with this looper playing the drum beats and with the bass IRs and the guitar IRs, I can literally be a one-man.
Stack it up.
I'm a one-man band with
Hell
this
yeah.
with this whole entire setup, so it's great. A couple of other sounds that I really do like. This is kind of, I took the whole big stack sounds and I thought, you know what? Let's try the same amplifier type with a different cabinet IR, just to show you how important the IR is in terms of the tonal changes in between, like, you know, exact same amplifier settings, exact same amp settings that I had from the previous example. But this one is going through a 410 using a ribbon microphone. So again, it completely changes the texture and the way the amplifier responds and sounds. So super important that maybe we threw like 200 something slots for you to choose from. Some of my other favorite ones, I know a lot of people actually play bass with a pick. I know, I'm really hurting the bass players today. I'm sorry.
This is a guitar player playing bass.
I also set up this particular preset to work well with slap. I'm going to try and best my slap. And then my other favorite bass tone that I have, last one, I was kind of going for, you know, a kind of really 90s fat, thick, heavy, distorted kind of thing.
IR-200 is coming at you this fall, winter 2021, and coming in at $399.99, which ain't bad for a pedal that's that deep, that does that much.
Considering what you get for
when
it,
you can
man.
load in your own IRs, that's unheard of at that price point, especially in this form factor. So super cool.
Oh yeah,
amazing product from Boss, and you can get it at chucklevins.com.
Check it out.
Thanks a lot,
Adam.
Thank you.
Thank you.